We're seeing a surge across America of people wanting to buy raw land, and understandably so. It's peaceful, it's quiet, there's no homeowners association, nobody can tell you what to do. Unfortunately, there's a lot of mistakes that people are making that you just need to know and understand. From wells, surveys, appraisals, overpaying for the property. I'm going to cover all that in this video. I promise you, after watching this video, you're going to have a complete and solid and confident understanding of exactly what to do from beginning to end, to finding the money, to closing on your next piece of land. Now, a lot of this in this video you can do before you make an offer on a piece of property or after. You just have to know that there's a due diligence period when you make an offer on a piece of land. Home's the same way, and it's typically 10 to 15 days. It can be negotiated or an extension, but for the most part it's 10 to 15 days of which you have to do surveys and appraisals and all this stuff, right? If you do it before you make the offer, you take the risk of someone coming and making an offer and buying the land out from under you. If you put it under contract, you have the time frame. However, it's short timed, framed, if you will. So for example, you want to make sure the road frontage, you want to get a copy of the survey. If the survey's 25, 30 years old, you want to make sure probably get a new survey. That's something that sometimes the seller will pay for, sometimes they won't, sometimes they'll split it with you. The cost varies just because the lay of the land, how much land is cleared, how much land is wooded. Over and above just the survey, you want to walk the property, and I always suggest and tell people, do not just walk the property when it's dry. Walk the property before, during, after a rain. Mainly during or after a rain. And you want to walk and look for the pins. Pins are in a property signifying the property lines, and those pins are driven into the ground so people can know the meets and bounds where the property begins and ends. You can do that by finding a metal detector or just asking the owner of the property to walk it with you. That way you know the actual frontage across the front, how deep the property is, and most importantly, you have to understand this. And if you're not doing so, write this information down, because this is free and very valuable. My name is Wayne Turner. I have been in the real estate business for 30 years. I have bought, flipped, sold. I've done just about everything when it comes to real estate, and I just enjoy sharing this information. I'm a big believer. You learn it, you master it, and you teach it. One of the big things that you have to understand is before you take ownership in the property, you can walk the property, make sure there's no other things encroaching upon the land that the owner may not even know about. I can't tell you how many mistakes and horror stories where people like they encroached on the land, there was cattle on the land, there was barns, storage buildings, all of that. You don't want that headache after you take ownership in a piece of property. Those are things that the seller can address before you take ownership in that land. One thing that we see people forget and just simply overlook is you need to know the restrictive covenants and what you can and can't do with the land. You see, you may buy a piece of property, you think you want to buy a piece of property, but you're restricted. You can't put double wides or single wides, and you got to build a certain square footage of house. That's why every piece of property has restrictive covenants, deed restrictions. Not all of them, but you want to make sure if they're in place, then those deed restrictions and covenants actually fit what you want to do with the land, and you can simply find that out by going to your local courthouse in your county, registered of deeds office, and give them the municipal address or the physical address, and then from there they can look up the deed, map, plat, parcel number, all that information, so they can see, okay, here's the property, here's what you can do, here's who owned it. You can search all of that information, so that way when you know what you're going to do with the property, because it's not just the deed restrictions and it's not just the restrictive covenants, you also need to know if the city and county would allow you to do what you want to do on the land. If you're going to buy the land and you're going to start a mobile home park, that may not be something that you can do with that property. If you just want to use it as farmland, then sure, I think that would be fine. But every piece of land is different. Every city, every county, every parish has their restrictions. So you'll want to make sure you always make sure you can do what you want to do with the land that you're about to buy. Now, I certainly don't mean for this video to be like a Debbie Downer, but these are just a lot of common mistakes that people just simply overlook, and I just want you to be aware of them. One of them is, you know, when it comes to what you're going to do with the land, are you going to put a well, are you going to put a septic, does it have city water, city sewer? You need to know those things. And also, when you go to purchase the property, you want to make sure that you get the mineral rights to the property. That means that if there's any oil on that land or water on that land, you want the water rights and the mineral rights. That way, the last thing you want to do is to purchase a piece of property and you don't have the mineral rights, and they come driving up on your land or send you notice in the mail that, hey, we're going to start drilling for oil on your property. I'm down here in southern Louisiana, but it doesn't matter if you're in Ohio, Pennsylvania. Those northern states are the first place they actually found oil. So it's all over the place. You just want to make sure that Is there septic? Is there city water? If not, can I put a well? Is it rocky? How long is it going to take? What's it going to do? All of that information you can get from not only just a seller, but during your due diligence period, you can have it inspected. You can have literally somebody that drills wells for a living, that knows the topography of the land and what's in that soil. And for example, septic systems. Oftentimes, you may have a rocky area and the water won't perk. The septic system won't perk. That means the sewer that actually goes into the, from the house into the soil would not absorb that fast enough. And if it won't absorb it fast enough, well then you've got to get a really, really expensive system to make sure that it processes everything. And if you don't want to spend $15,000, $20,000 on this high-tech septic system, that may not be the land for you. Arlo is a thoroughbred horse. She's beautiful. But when it comes to buying land, you gotta find the money. You gotta get the cash and you gotta have the money. And a lot of times you can do that if you already own a piece of property or own a home, for example. You can pull equity out of that property and it's like having cash. Like for example, if you owe $200,000 on a home and it's worth $450,000, for example, then you can pull some equity out of that through what they call a second mortgage and pay off that land and buy it with cash. Another means is just going to like a mortgage company, a bank, or a credit union. You need to know though, when you go to those places, you're gonna have to have 20% down. It used to be that you could do 10%, but that's kind of gone out the way. Now you have to have 20%. So if you're buying a $100,000 piece of property, it's gonna cost you $20,000. And then you're looking at 3% or thereabouts, 3.5% for closing costs. The good news is the seller can pay all of your closing costs if they wanted to, and they can, and that will save you a little bit of money on that end. Are you liking this information so far? If so, give me a thumbs up, comment, ask questions. Make your questions brief because I do my very best to answer all the questions. And when it's a long paragraph, it makes it a little bit more difficult for me to get to you and my staff and team to get to your comments. Most of the time I'm replying to all the comments. So if you have any comments, please ask questions. Share your experience. Have you ever bought land, had a mistake? What can you do? That's how we all learn. Like I said before, you learn it and you master it and you teach it, and that's how we all gain wisdom from each other. Now I want to talk to you about subdividing the land. A lot of people want to subdivide their land. Now, it's something just hit me. Before I jump over to that, you need to make sure also that you have the proper road frontage if you buy any piece of property, any piece of land, to put what you want to put in. See, oftentimes a city, a county, even a state will restrict that land to where you have to have a minimum of 100 feet of road frontage. So for example, if there's only a 25-foot easement or a 50-foot easement, it could be a 40-acre tract of land, but if there's just a small easement of say 10 foot for a driveway, basically that someone else has granted for the property you're about to purchase, they may not allow you to even build on that land. So those are the things that you have to look out for. Now, when it comes to subdividing land, let's just say it's got a lot of road frontage. Let's say you got 400, 500, 600 feet of road frontage and you're thinking, man, 600 feet wide, it's 2,000 feet deep, I can track this stuff off. Here's the mistake that people make. They think they're gonna do that, but they go to purchase the property, they put 20% down, they buy it, they close on it. The mistake is that loan is for all of that land, and that lender's not gonna let you break that land up. What you have to do, if it's already subdivided, you can buy each individual parcel and each individual loans, if you will. That way you can sell each one off. It becomes really, really difficult when you buy a piece of land and you own that land and there's a loan on that land and you try to subdivide it. The bank will not let you do it because that one parcel by itself is what's securing that one loan. Another really important question to ask, and oftentimes you can't get this from your city or your county or anything, you just got to get to know people. You got to get out to the gas stations, get out to the little restaurants, wherever it may be, the little grocery stores, get to know people. They will tell you what's going on in the area. You need to know what the land was used for. If you're buying a tract of land that's 10 plus acres, even if it is wooded, you need to know, was that land ever a landfill? Was there anything used on that land? So oftentimes they have land that's called Superfund sites, and perhaps there was a manufacturing facility or anything where oil or anything whatsoever that's toxic has been dumped on that site, then you can't build on it. So oftentimes you gotta look at the price, and of course they're gonna appraise the property if you get any loan, and I always tell people, when in doubt, get an appraisal done on it. It's $400 and it just kind of gives you peace of mind. That's Tootsie. She's a good little horse right there. Good little horse etiquette, just to let everybody know. Horses don't like it when you walk up to them and put your hand in their face. So if you're ever around a horse, let the horse smell the top of your hand, not face on. It's kind of like if somebody walked up to you and you were a stranger and they started putting their hand in your face, you'd be like, hey, what's going on, you know? So just a little horse etiquette. But always get to know your neighbors, know who the people are, travel the area, get to know the area, and ask them what that land was used for, because the last thing you want to do, buy a piece of land and realize it's worthless. Something to think about when you're buying land is what can you use it for before you build a house on it or move to that piece of property. So you have to understand there's timber, there's hay, you can farm it, you can lease out the land to people that want to hunt. You can do all kind of stuff with land that you may not have to use it at all. You can just allow other people to use it. You can allow other people to come on your property. Of course, always get a disclosure, make sure if anybody's hurt or injured, it's not your responsibility. You get them to write off on basically a hold harmless. It's one piece of paper you write up. It says that if they get hurt on your property, it's not your responsibility. That just kind of covers you. Now, when it comes to that, making money off your land, right? Cut down timber, all of that good stuff. One of the most important things you'll want to do as soon as you buy a piece of land is go to Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever, you know, one of these hardware stores, right? And get no trespassing signs and post them at the front of your property and around your property, all over the place. And also, after you've done that, go get you an umbrella policy, an insurance policy. Listen, the last thing you want anybody to do is encroach upon your land on their four-wheeler and crack their noggin, and next thing you know, they're suing you because they fell off their four-wheeler on your land. Get an umbrella policy, that will cover you. Also make sure you have plenty of no trespassing signs. Anybody trespasses on your property, they have to get off your land. Anybody gets hurt on your land, at the very least, you're covered with an umbrella policy. Now, if you're like me, there's nothing prettier than a lake, a stream, a creek, a river, just water on your property. I love water, everybody does. There's a reason that everybody flocks to the lakes and the ocean whenever it comes springtime and it's warm weather outside, right? Because it's very tranquil. Me personally, I almost feel closer to God sometimes when I'm literally looking at that big body of clear water. It's beautiful. But one thing you have to know when it comes to buying land is there any flood zones? Are there any wetlands? Like, for example, here's a property and it rolls back. You can see it's 22 acres, and when it rolls back, there's actually a little creek drainage right here. It runs along through the middle of the property. Now, there's no flood zone, there's no flooding, but you just have to know that going in before you take ownership in the property. Is it in a flood zone? Is it any wetland areas? Is it usable land? And if it is in a flood zone, what's it going to cost you? There's flood zones A, B, C, and X, and there's variations of A. And A being that it's in the highest risk of that property flooding. And those insurance policies are going to cost you more money. And so you may spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year on a flood policy you may not ever use. However, you have to know this. If you're going to build a house in an area that's in flood zone A and you're going to get a loan, mortgage companies require that you have flood insurance because they're lending you money on that asset. And it's secured. That loan is secured by the asset. So they want to make sure if it floods, you at the very minimum can put everything back together under that flood insurance policy. People don't understand that your homeowner's insurance does not cover flooding. You have to have a separate policy if you are in a flood zone. Covenants, restrictions, easements, what you can and can't do. I think I covered just about everything in this video. I'll try to make it short where it's not too long and not too boring and try to get you the facts. I'm really big on, you know, not just learn, master, and teach it, but simplify it. I try to make everything as simple as possible. If you agree with that, give me a thumbs up and just let me know. That's what a lot of people say, Wayne, you just make it simple. Listen, it doesn't have to be that difficult, and you don't have to be scared because, listen, education and knowledge equals confidence. Competence equals confidence. And the more you know, the easier it is. It brings down that fear. And that's why I do these videos, so you can educate yourself as much as possible so you can have the comfort knowing that when you purchase a piece of land, before, during, and after you close on it, you do that with confidence. So my name is Wayne Turner. I thank you for watching these videos. Share them with anybody that you know that think may benefit from these, even real estate agents. I've been in the business for 30 years and I love helping everybody. Until next time, thank you again for watching, and God bless you.